to you about. Bigfoot, it turns out, is real. According to one group of researchers, they say that they may have DNA to prove it. Look at these pictures. You can see for yourself, obviously. That is Sasquatch, and it is real. We told you first last week about these folks at the Sasquatch Genome Project. They presented these photos in Texas, and they claim to have tissue samples, DNA, blood, hair, video evidence of what they say is a female Bigfoot human hybrid creature.
Well, good afternoon. Along with the sightings that have been reported across the country, they also say that there have been numerous sightings right here in Texas, mainly on the eastern part of the state along the Louisiana border. These folks who held this news conference today are part of the Sasquatch Genome Project, and their effort is to prove that Sasquatch is real.
Hello, sir. J.C. Johnson, the Indiana Jones of cryptozoology. Welcome to Questionable. How are you, sir?
I'm really good. A pleasure to be here.
Now, can you see me? I can't.
I can see you.
Oh, you can see me. Oh, where are you?
Your lips even match up with everything. No delay. You gotta love Skype.
Well, I can't see you. I can see myself.
Oh,
that's strange.
Video here. Dun, da, da, da.
Boom. We're away. Hello. How did yesterday go? How are you?
Really good, really good. We had a really nice show last night that'll be on YouTube here shortly. I'm sure it's on SoundCloud already, but we got into some really deep, dark, scary things.
Right, well, my listeners, I guess, won't know. Well, I'm sure everyone's heard of Bigfoot and stuff. That's what we're going to talk about. Before anyone tunes out, don't turn off that dial, because we have essentially credible proof of the existence of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, Almasti, Alma. What else is there? I mean, you've been hunting crypto creatures for many years. What can you tell people who wouldn't know that much about Bigfoot and think it's a complete load of toss?
Worldwide, we probably have 30 different types of hairy hominids.
Right. And it's such a hard question to ask in a sense, because it falls into myth and legend. I fully believe this thing is there, and I've been to America many times, and I think people that naysay it think, or they don't take into account the size of the terrain in America.
Yeah, we've got miles and miles of nothing but miles and miles. We've got huge areas out west, and especially the Native American areas I work, the Navajo Reservation is well over 200,000 square miles, and there's a lot of nothingness out there, and there's lots of vast tracts of forest and so forth and mountains that probably some areas no one's ever set foot.
Yeah, no, it's just everyone I talk to about this thinks I'm completely batshit crazy and think it's a crock of shit. No, Bigfoot's not real. It's fake. It's a guy in a suit. There was that film in the '60s, the Patterson-Gimlin film, which they don't know. It was
that bloke in a suit.
It was that bloke in a suit, wasn't it? Bob Hieronymus, of course, who claimed he wore a Bigfoot suit in that famous 1960s Bigfoot video.
A little bit of background on that. I'm sure Bob Hieronymus did wear a suit that Roger Patterson purchased from the costume factory at Philip Morris in North Carolina. He was working on a documentary. He was filming a documentary, so he had the suit, and he showed the suit to people. Mm-hmm. Boy, showed the suit 3 times fast. Anyway, it was well known he had a suit for the recreations in his documentary. That's not what he captured on film. That is not a suit. And they didn't have animatronics and ways to make the muscles flex underneath the suit and so forth. Even the guy that worked on Planet of the Apes came out and he said there's no way in 1967 someone could have put a suit together like that and have all the effects and everything that you see in that short film clip.
Well, they use a thing called stretch fur in movies now, don't they? So the skin of the suit stretches, and the fur, the hair on the suit moves with it. If you were doing, I guess, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes from 2001, the suit dynamics would obviously move. I guess then it would just be like a sackcloth with hairs in it. But I mean, that film for me really kind of ignited my interest as a child into thinking this is actually, I don't know, there's something about the thing. I mean, a lot of people have come out and said it's a bunch of hooey and hogwash, but there's really is something about that film, the Patterson-Gimlin film. I encourage people that are listening to go on YouTube and look at it. There is something very telling and strangely, weirdly real about it. There really is.
And look at the enhancements in the stop motion and the stabilization that M.K. Davis early on got involved in stabilizing the PNG film, and zooming up, zooming in, getting some of the actual camera film from the raw video, the raw film,
yeah,
and pulling some of the enhancements out of it. He's got original copies of that Patterson-Gimlin film from Patricia herself.
So
Patterson's wife. So
what ignited your interest in this? What was your way in as a crypto researcher? What's the pull of it for you? Because you study all kinds of crypto creatures, don't you? Like I guess there's the wolfman type creature. You've got the chupacabra. What else have you? Vampires, werewolves, everything. You go after it all. Men in Black.
They come to us, I guess. The Men in Black will be looking for a knock on the door one of these days. But I've been told how to handle the Men in Black. Been told, and it's not a government agency. Not to get off the track of Bigfoot.
No, of course.
Real quick, I've got a friend who's in the aerospace industry, and he writes in some UFO columns and so forth, and he's got like a G45 clearance. He's way up there, and his employers told him to expect a visit from the Men in Black. They told him, don't let them in your house. Calmly, quietly, tell them to leave. This guy lets him in. He's had 2 visits from him, and he likes to mess with them. You know, they're very animated. They're very pale. They always wear the dark shades.
It's not Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
No, and they look alike. And you know, a lot of times he can see a wire when their pant leg lifts up a little bit. He can see a wire coming up, rolling up. These guys are completely wired for sound. They're just robotic, and they start asking their questions, and he answers the questions the best he can. And then he asks them questions, and then there's a long response time, and then they answer the question. You know, they're getting the feedback from whoever their handler is, how to answer the question. And then he'll get into it, you know, and offer them the pleasantries, like, would you like a glass of tea, a glass of water, things like, you know, being pleasant and polite. And he just really gets in with them. And then right off the wall, he'll go, last night I dreamt I ate the world's biggest marshmallow, and this morning I woke up and my pillow was gone. What do you think happened? And he said, there'll be a 5-minute silence. You know, he brings them in just to mess with them.
With random questions. So how long have you done this for?
Well, here's the deal. It isn't something I chose to do or chose to get involved in. It was a horrific incident up on the Mogollon Rim back about 17, 18 years ago now that I'd been doing river trips, guide trips. We had a canoe and kayak club that would get together in this high mountain lake. And what it is, it's in a deep canyon that cuts through, and it looks like a river, but it's not. They put a dam up and dammed up Clear Creek proper. And you got about 12 miles of water that snakes to the canyons. And we like to go to the very back where there's no people, no nothing, just bears and cougars and I'll come to find out Bigfoot. So we'd had scratched our head on a lot of different things over the years that we couldn't quite explain. We would go off on a whole day fishing trip and come back to our camp, and things had been moved around on the table like the salt and pepper shakers, and there was manipulation that I knew it took hands to do it, but over a period of time, all the weird stuff we started calling Ridge Bear. Oh, Ridge Bear was back again.
Sure.
Yep, Ridge Bear came and moved all our stuff around and, you know, moved the chairs around and, you know, just for something to put our mind at ease, we had to make up this thing. Well, one night I was out there with my buddy and we couldn't find anywhere on shore that there wasn't bear sign. The bear had been coming down to this reservoir to drink. And I didn't want to camp with all these bears. It's just not fun. It's not a picnic, you know. And they're not after a picnic basket. No, they're after something else. So we were going to leave, and I remembered there was a flat rock sticking up out of the water, about 3 feet out of the water, and it was about 10 by 15.
Right.
I said, let's go find that rock. You know, we'll bungee cord the tent down and blah, 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 and we got room for the chair. So we did. We found the rock, and there was a sheer cliff, about an 80-foot, 100-foot tall cliff, and pasted all around the front of the rock, and about 30 feet of water. And I'm like, we're bear proof. Well, nearly bear proof. I mean, they'll swim a mile, 2 miles if they want something. So I thought we were pretty safe there.
Right.
And about midnight I woke up because my buddy threw everything in the tent on me because I was snoring, and I was cussing him out. And he said, well, your snoring's not the problem now. Listen, and we heard this scream coming from the back canyon. He had served in a tanker division in Germany. He's Gulf War vet, first Gulf War. And he said, that sounds just like the banshees in the Black Forest. It's a banshee, it's a banshee. They have 3-inch long nails and they'll tear you apart. You know, and I'm just listening.
Sure.
And the scream is coming closer and closer. And it sounds like it's coming through the treetops. It's not. It's making a trail to us, busting branches the whole way. It finally got on the ridge above us, and by this time, we're looking out the tent flap, scared to death. Here's this huge 10-foot tall hominid figure, wide shoulders. The first thing he did was picked up about 150-pound rock and he threw it like a discus. And it landed next to my canoe in the water, and whoosh!
Yeah.
A big wave came, and my aluminum canoe's banging on the rock. This thing's up there screaming at us, and the decibels, deafening. And then as we kept sticking our heads out of the tent material, he started picking up forest debris, pine cones, whatever he could get his hands on, and kind of lobbing it down on us. Not really hard, but enough to hurt your face, you know. Ow, ow.
Yeah.
Back it in there. And he took one breath, and it sounded like a 300-pound lung filling up. And then started screaming again.
Sure.
And finally turned around, and he screamed the whole way out, and you could hear the branches going again. He was making another trail through the trees. We got the nerve the next morning, because we couldn't leave out of there in the dark. We had about 6 or 7 miles of water in pitch blackness, pretty much, with basically a flashlight to get out of there, and that's just too dangerous. You're stuck back there when you're there. I know a lot of people who have been chased out of there at night and just left their camp and got in their canoe or kayak or whatever they had, got the hell out. But the next morning we climbed up the cliff up into the ridge. We saw the trail he made coming in, and we saw the trail he made leaving.
So you're on the territory of the creature, I suppose, right?
Well, we just found his trails. We didn't trail him. I wanted to leave. So all that, that made everything that had been going on in this area make sense. To me, Bigfoot was a Pacific Northwest thing in the United States, Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Northern California.
Did you believe in it before you had an encounter?
I did. I did, because I talked to a lot of credible people who had run-ins. I've talked to other river guides and other outdoor guides and so forth, and I believed them, but I didn't know they were in Arizona, let alone the Mogollon Rim. So that's where it started for me, and I didn't go back there for a month. And finally, I went back. I did a by myself. And I went way back in the canyon, and mild activity, but I think we disturbed this guy's nap, because we ran into 2 other fishermen that day, and it was just after ice out.
Sure.
When the ice is still melting, there's still sheets of ice everywhere. You got to be really careful. But we ran into 2 other fishermen, and they were leaving. So we had 10 square miles all to ourselves, so we were singing silly songs and cutting up and yelling, because we weren't bothering anybody.
Yeah.
At least we didn't think we were bothering anybody. But I think we disturbed that big fellow's nap that day, and he came to express his disappointment with us.
So after that first encounter, you become, a crypto researcher.
Well, here's what we do. We don't really look for anything anymore. We respond to people asking us to come help them or come investigate something. It isn't like we're out hiding behind every bush and stuff like that. Pretty much anymore, we just respond to people who need some help.
Sure.
And, I had to go back there by myself, because I spent a lot of time back in the Blue Ridge all by myself, days at a time. And, I had to go back and face my fears back there. And after that, they didn't do anything more horrific. They would just chuck rocks in at me and, let me know that they were there.
Yeah.
And or we would find their prints and things like that. They'd make vocalizations. They'd, come in around the camps and stuff. But I mean, other than that really horrific incident, that time, there wasn't any more really scary things going on in Blue Ridge. It's like they calmed down a little bit, They kind of treat you the way you act.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're the most, for me, and I guess...
So that's my catalyst.
Yeah.
And from there, obviously you can be a victim of a circumstance, or you can empower yourself and go out and get some answers and get some closure of your own, and that's what I chose to do.
Sure. Well, it's the most credible, crypto creature, even for people who kind of don't really believe it, but I guess now you're involved in a thing called the Bigfoot Research or Genome Project, or the Sasquatch Genome Project.
Well, that was a 5-year study we did the press conference, actually the big press conference a couple of years ago. And what had happened, we got together 111 samples from the United States and Canada. And, you know, some photos and some video and some supplemental things for the study.
Sure.
And, you know, this is doctors, scientists, PhDs, forensic scientists, stuff like that. Not, you know, grubby researchers don't sign on to this, you know. But I got to be a part of the project. You know, I'm by no means a scientist or a doctor. I do have my PhD, pure homeboy determination. So. But anyway, you know, they included me in the study, let me partake in the study, kept me up to date on everything, all this stuff, and it was a good thing, and it was a good study. And they did double-blind testing. It wasn't just Dr. Melba sending to her laboratory and testing and coming up with these results.
Well, that's just to let
Texas Crime Lab,
yeah,
Texas A&M University, and that's the double-blind testing. They came up with the same results.
Right. Yeah, well, to those that don't know, it's Dr. Melba Ketchum of DNA Diagnostics, which is in Texas, right?
Well, she doesn't have that business anymore.
Right.
And because she published this periodical, this review, this paper, she doesn't work for the court system anymore because she published this Bigfoot paper. So essentially getting involved in this, and we couldn't find anybody else to help us,
right.
Ruined her. She can't testify in the Texas court. She was an expert DNA witness.
Well, that's
for the
terrible.
Texas court system. She put a lot of bad people in jail, but yeah, it's all very unfortunate. And I didn't think they would let her get as far as to even complete the paper. I was expecting a mysterious lab fire to destroy everything, or I didn't think they would let her go as far as he did. And they were already ready in place for when the paper came out. You've got people marginalizing Dr. Melba as a person, marginalizing the study. You've got your disinformation agents out there well at work, well in advance of when the study comes out.
Sure.
And going across the pond over to you, we've gone into Nature with this DNA paper. 3 times they sent it back. The 3rd time we corrected everything. We showed them where some of the material they were looking for was actually in the study. We didn't need to supply anything else for them. And they were satisfied, but they wouldn't sign off on it.
No.
They would not sign off on it. And we satisfied everything that they wanted. Guess who one of the peer reviewers was on that study?
Dr. Brian Sykes of the UK, by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Isn't that a coinky-dink?
Well, for those that don't know also...
They won't sign off on it.
Yeah.
So they send it back. Dr. Melba self-publishes.
Well, it's like when the Warren Commission investigated JFK's assassination, they investigated themselves, essentially. Brian Sykes, to those that don't know, a year or so ago, there was a program called, I think it was Looking for Bigfoot, or not Finding Bigfoot, not the American show, but it was essentially a 3-part show. You had a bunch of scientists headed by Brian Sykes and the presenter. They went to Tibet looking for the Yeti. They went to North America, where they met Derek Randalls for the Bigfoot episode, and they went to the Almaty, which is obviously in Russia. And all results came back as bear, or as another kind of bear, or an old polar bear, an extinct polar bear, which turned out to be not an extinct polar bear. It was all kind of like whitewashed in a sense, because at no point was this DNA study mentioned. Now, I know a skeptic out there will go, well, it's because the study was hogwash. There was no yielding of any results. The study wasn't conducted properly. The samples were contaminated with human DNA. That's what they came out as human. But I would have thought if the science speaks for itself, and the DNA, as you know, well, Dr. Melba obviously did previously in a court of law testify in courts with various other crimes based on DNA evidence, which you can't refute. How can these scientific journals and universities and PhDs just go, oh, it's rubbish, not listening? You know?
Well, let's go back to the Almaty. They essentially got DNA from Zana, the Almaty, which is very well documented, this furry individual lady that was captive of a rich Russian landowner. And, you know, it's very well documented by Dr. Igor Bortsev and some of his other comparts, Russian hominologists. Very well documented case. In fact, they interviewed people who were still alive at the time back in the 60s who remembered Zana and what she looked like. She was covered in hair, 5 feet wide at the shoulders, 6.5 feet tall, 300 or 400 pounds, a great big hairy woman. And they gave her all the wine she wanted when she was finally sort of tamed. And some of the Russian perverts of the neighborhood anyway, she had, I believe, 3 or 4 children. The first child, she ran down to the creek, and it was wintertime, and she bathed the baby, and the baby died of shock.
Right.
After that, they took the babies away from her. Long story short, they take Zana's DNA, and I think they had some DNA from her son, Quict.
This is the UK program, right?
Yeah. And the mitochondrial DNA comes back human, and the ancestry comes back African. So from there, he hatches, well, she wasn't a hairy woman, she was a repatriated slave or something from Africa that ends up in Russia. I mean,
sure.
you got to build a bigger story. And all he did was the mitochondrial DNA. The mitochondrial DNA tells you who the original mother was.
Sure. How did
with this study, with Melba Ketchum's whole genome study, we had Germanic ancestry, Jewish ancestry, African ancestry, Asian ancestry, Native American ancestry. So I mean, these are human.
The human components of the DNA, essentially.
Yeah, and in fact, we're filming while we're gathering one particular situation. I'm there with 2 Native Americans and myself, and the mitochondrial DNA comes back African. Now, unless those guys aren't telling me something, I don't think there's any African contamination from the 3 of us.
Sure.
Another thing, too, if I cut off a piece of my ear, send it to you, you spit on it, give it to your buddy, he can prick his finger and bleed on it, send the piece of ear in, you guys are going to show up as the contaminants, the second party. So that's what happens when you say human contamination. That's why it comes back human. If you do contaminate something, you become the second party.
So in what way would it be contaminated? Let's say, for an example, you get a piece of hair that you think is perhaps telling of a Bigfoot. How would you, if you made a mistake, how would someone contaminate it? Is it easy to contaminate a sample by touch?
If you touch the follicle,
right,
it would be more difficult to test the sample if you touched it, because
sure,
then they have to wash you off and then go back after the DNA, because you come back as a contaminant.
Right, because Bigfoot, well, for those that also don't know, alleged Bigfoot hair doesn't have a medulla, is that correct? It's the piece of, I guess, what gives your hair the pigment?
The outside hairs, we've run into situations where we do believe we've gathered guard hairs that are underneath the hollow outside hairs.
Sure.
And I don't believe it's true in all cases. We got such a mixed bag of tricks when it comes to these furry guys. They're essentially, if you will, a human hybrid, but the real actual percentage of humans still in these guys is probably between 1 and 17%. It isn't that cut and dried. It just, the head scratcher is why the human mitochondrials, what's not on file. And they've got billions and billions of pairs of everything that walks on this earth, squats on rocks, flies in the air.
Which is the gene bank, right? Which is the library of every single categorized genetic information in every animal.
After 3 whole genomes, and that's the nuclear testing, that's who the daddy is, there's nothing in GenBank. Nothing.
So mitochondrial is the mother's side, and nuclear is the male side.
Well, yeah, when they do the whole genome, you get both parents.
Right, so the mitochondrial is the human side. Is that correct?
Yeah,
and then
the mitochondrial would be the mother.
Mother.
On any DNA test. I don't care if it's a fruit fly or whatever. You do the DNA testing, mitochondrial-wise, you go back to the original mother.
Sure.
From
Okay.
the individual.
So what is this other component that's not human that they said, oh my God, well, let's rewind just for me more than anyone, apart from the listeners. They submit these samples to certain universities and PhDs, and the results come back with, oh my God, you've discovered a new species, what is this? And at that point, Melba says it's a Bigfoot, and then they go, oh, right, we want our names taken off this paper.
Yeah.
Well,
that's pretty much about it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of gender bias too. And Dr. Melba is a Southern belle. She talks with a Southern accent. She's a sweetheart. And anything they could do to marginalize this poor woman,
to discredit her because she sounds Southern, and they can just make out she's stupid or something, right?
Yeah. Essentially, and those who've read the paper is online. It's available. The Denisoba Journal. It's available for anyone online to read. And we've got a lot of doctors, scientists, and PhDs coming over, and they want to replicate the testing.
Sure.
And I think that's encouraging. They should do that. So that's in the future with University of New Mexico. I'm working on getting another whole genome study together.
Well, the same thing happened there.
All kinds of people in the States who are having all kinds of interactions with these furry people. and they're gathering hair samples and different samples and some even blood, saliva, things of that nature, and handling it in a proper way.
Sure.
And hanging on to it. You know, there's hundreds of people out there go, well, where do I send it? I said, well, first we got to find someone to do this, and we have to do it in such a way that whoever gets involved with it doesn't get their life destroyed.
Yeah.
And do that route.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think perhaps Brian Sykes, who kind of like crapped on this study and put a lid on it essentially, do you not think he's kind of kept that information on ice and at some later date will claim credit for discovering this new species? And not just him, just any kind of academic group that could now claim, because they can easily discredit New Mexico, right, if you did another study.
They could, but if it's done at a major university and done in the right way, and with the same double-blind testing going out to other laboratories with the samples and having them tested and them coming up with the same results.
Sure.
And then putting everything together. I think we learned a lot from the first time out of the gate trying to bring this to the world, if you will, because there are powers that be out there and a lot of entities and perhaps even corporations that don't want this to come to light. You can imagine. And one thing too, we firmly stressed in the press conference, we're not asking for mass tracts of wilderness to be put aside for them. It isn't like you could put the Bigfoot on a reservation,
yeah,
and they would stay there. Okay, they do what they want, go when they want. You can't stop them. Okay, and they're doing just fine without any intervention from us.
Yeah, it's
we would like some hunter education out there. When you go and sign off on your bear tag, to buy your bear tag, you go bear hunting, you have to read this pamphlet that if they're in the area, what to look for, what they look like, and sign off on it. And if you kill one out of misidentification, you're in trouble.
Sure.
Be sure of your target. Be sure of what you're shooting.
As you're not under a non-disclosure agreement, can you name or perhaps suggest who these universities were that have passed this information saying this is a new species, and then when finding out it's Bigfoot, Sasquatch, what have you, and having their names wanting to be taken off it, can we say who they are?
Actually it wasn't to the point of that, because the Texas Crime Lab did not insist that they be removed from the paper, nor did Texas A&M.
Right.
So, because they came up with the same findings. And the other doctors and scientists that she's got 6 other people on this paper who helped her write it, you haven't heard a word from them saying anything derogatory about this study.
Sure.
But when they marginalize and get their disinformation program going, that's what happens.
No, it's
if
just...
you get a popular idea, it just snowballs and snowballs, and once again, over there across the pond, Dr. Sykes comes out with his program, and now Bigfoot is bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullocks or whatever.
That's bollocks, Governor.
People are so easily influenced. Go do the research for yourself before you decide on something. Absolutely, go do the research.
How are the samples? How are the samples gathered? I mean, the team. It's Dr. Melba Ketchum, Adrian Ericson, who I'd like to talk about as well. He's a philanthropist, wealthy guy who kind of funds his own project, right? He was collecting samples too.
He had people down south. He hired biologists. He had lots of people gathering information, gathering samples. He's probably got some of the best video that anyone's ever going to see, if he'll ever release this documentary he's been working on for 7 or 8 years now.
Have you seen any footage? Because is that not telling?
I've got to see some of it. There's some really amazing stuff on there, but for whatever reasons, he is not releasing the documentary. I wish he would.
I think previous researchers have kind of... I think what's damaging that is the fact that there's been people like Todd Standing, you've got Rick Dyer. Not that Todd Standing's not been accused of being a hoaxer as such out loud, but you've got Rick Dyer, who has an admitted hoaxing. Tom Biscardi, about, was it 2008? He got like a deer carcass and threw like a Bigfoot outfit on it and stuff. It was in a fridge.
Matthew Wooden and Rick Dyer.
Okay. Sorry, Tom.
The fake Bigfoot.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, isn't it? Where they keep teasing. Oh, this footage is out there. I promise you, the footage is there. You'll see it next week, and it's always next week. Is that not damaging Mr. Erickson's reputation by constantly teasing this thing that it's going to come out? It's going to come out.
No, more or less, Erickson's like, we're not doing anything with the documentary right now, and that's it. It's not like next week, next month, or anything. There's no strings being pulled. There's no carrot out in front of you going, just wait, you're gonna love it. No, he's just pulled the plug on it for now.
I suppose footage, no matter how good it is anyway, it's not going to be as good as DNA evidence. I just can't believe no one is, I guess, taking it on, or just... it's just mind-boggling, the scientific world has partially agreed that this exists, and now they're saying, and now they've just ruined Dr. Ketchum's reputation and kind of put the kibosh on it, along with that kind of like...
If she came up with gorilla DNA, I think they would have been a lot more receptive. That would have fit their agenda and their narrative.
Perhaps that's what should have been said.
It has to be something of the gorilla nature, or it has to be Denisovan or Neanderthal. You know, it can't be any kind of modern human mixed with this creature, whatever it is.
Well, they should have said it was an ape or something from Africa, or something like vaguely credible, to kind of like...
It doesn't fit the narrative, so they don't support it. And even, you know, Dr. Meldrum, he has a problem with anything having anything to do with any kind of human DNA. And that's another very small study that we gathered some samples for. It's a video on YouTube, Sasquatch DNA gathering. Sent it in to Dr. Meldrum. He sent it on to Todd Disotell.
That's New York, right?
He's in New York. I guarantee you, when he finds human mitochondrial DNA, he'll throw everything out.
Sure.
Even though it's non-human hair, doesn't have a medulla, you could test 100 different hairs in the bag of hair he got, and he'll throw it all out because it doesn't fit his narrative, doesn't fit his agenda.
Well, what's the excuse that whoever gathered the sample, no matter what the hair is, it's contaminated by the person that collected it, right?
Well, even with the Ericson project, they had a young Bigfoot girl. I think it was Matilda's daughter, if it wasn't Matilda herself, but they would bring her flapjacks from McDonald's, covered in syrup and butter, and she'd munch them down, and they got kind of where they could get within 20, 30 yards of her, and then she'd start growling and showing her teeth. But she loved these flapjacks, and what they did is got some very finely ground glass and put it in the super glue and put it on the bottom of the plate. So when she'd lick the plate, she was leaving a little bit of DNA matter and a little bit of blood. She didn't even know. And they did this several times, and my understanding is Disotell, one of those plates came into him for testing, and human mitos came back, he threw the plate away.
Whoa.
That's a good way to get your neck twisted off. Anyway, enough of that. But anyway, I am saying science, Scientifica, that's my new word, I made that up. Scientifica, the old school of Scientifica, we're coming for you.
Sure.
Can't stop us. You can kill us, but you can't stop us. You can kill me. There's other people out there. They will get the truth out.
How is your team? I mean, is it David Politis is connected with this as well? I guess the ex-cop who turned author.
He got several samples into the study, as well as Ericson and, you know, folks from all over the country were sending stuff in. And obviously the hairs were screened by experts. If it was deer, if it was dog, if it was bear, you know, everything was screened. You know, it still cost a few bucks to run a mitochondrial test. You're not going to be doing mitochondrial testing on everything. When the markers came back in the mitochondrial, that's when they got worked toward the whole genome nuclear testing.
Well, I can't believe Dr. Meldrum, for those that don't know, Dr. Jeff Meldrum is works at Idaho State University as a primatologist, is that correct?
Yes, and an anthropologist. He's more of a physical anthropologist.
Well, he's like Jane Goodall in the sense that he's like a mainstream scientist who thinks and admits Bigfoot is possibly real, goes on and does lots of television shows.
Yes, no, I have the utmost respect for him. I think he should be in the mind of science. If the DNA comes back, the closest living relative is a hippopotamus, and that's what the science says, then accept that. Don't have a preconceived idea of what you want it to be.
Well, has he read the paper?
He wants it to be a monkey.
Yeah.
Big monkey. Yeah, essentially, you know, in my heart of hearts, what I wanted, and it's not about what we want, it's what the science is. I wanted it to be Giganopithecus blacki, the Asian ape that's been extinct for 100 years. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Having human factors involved make some of your worst nightmares come true.
Yeah, it's. Has Dr. Meldrum read the DNA paper of your study?
And I shouldn't call my study. It's everybody's study.
Well, your collective group, you know, Dr. Ketchum, Mr. Ericson, you...
I very much doubt it. And when Todd Disotell was reading it, he said he really didn't understand it. because he's not qualified to understand it.
So why? Oh God, I just can't believe why it wouldn't get passed to a department that could handle it, or just I don't know. It's so shocking to me. They won't take this seriously or release the information. What's Meldrum's excuse for the? If he's read the paper, what's his excuse to kind of like put the kibosh on this?
I doubt he's even read the paper. I very much doubt it. And here's what will happen. It'll make for great television, this next round of DNA, because I believe History Channel gave Dr. Meldrum a few bucks to have Digital test some samples, and we have samples in from New Mexico. Human mitochondrials will come back. They'll either claim contamination or they'll go further and take it a step further. I don't know. I would like to see. I'm interested. If anything, once again, I suppose it'll make for great television.
How is
The
Dr.
mystery deepens and darkens and continues on.
How was Dr. Ketchum successful where others had failed? Because you come up against a brick wall, it comes out as human, and then you go, right, if I crack this a few more steps, we'll get into the real issue of the DNA. Is that how it works? You just keep having to try and push through?
Essentially, at one point, too, she brought in a mathematical PhD genius, Richard Stubstad. And from what I'm told early on, it was some of his mathematical formulas that saved a bunch of time.
Sure.
Now, this is getting off into the stuff I don't really understand, especially math.
No.
These are some big numbers, but the different DNA strands and so forth. The guy, he passed away a couple of years ago. God bless him. But I think it was due to him early on that helped take apart some of the DNA strands mathematically and make things fit in a little bit better for testing. I don't really know how that works.
No, of course. So, in your heart of hearts, you wanted this thing to be Gigantopithecus. God, I can't even say it. This long extinct Asian ape from 100,000 years ago.
That would be convenient.
It would.
Wouldn't it? Would that be wonderful? We have this rare giant ape from Asia roaming North
Upright
America,
walking,
South
I understand,
America.
right? Well, they think.
That would have been very convenient. That's not what it is. That's not what the science shows.
Well, Grover Krantz came up with that idea, didn't he? He was the original progenitor of that kind of idea, because they found teeth only, and then they created and they built a skull.
I guess they used to eat them because they found the jawbones in fire pits and so forth. So they roasted up a big old gorilla, enjoyed it.
It's I don't know. What do you think it is then? I mean, some people say it's like an interdimensional thing. Some people say it's a ghost. Some people say it's an alien. Some people say it's still an ape, like Dr. Meldrum. What's your thought now? You know it's part human, part something else. Do you know what the part something else is?
Number one, we have their pictures. I've seen them. We find their scat. We find their prints. That's a physical entity.
Sure.
Do they have otherworldly things about them? Yes. I won't go off too much into that until we have finally, I guess, acceptable definitive proof. Then I'll go off into the weird stuff.
Well, I think
once again, neither one of us wants to be in the crazy batshit nuts category. I know things.
Well, not super
abilities that we don't have.
Yeah, but not in the supernatural sense. Just they have they can disappear trees. They can
potentially, but then we'd have to go back to the origins. Who's your daddy? And that's what the whole genome does. Is try to find out. Who's the daddy? You're going to go on Jerry Springer and find out who the daddy is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the results are in, and it looks like the giants of old. You mean the great men of renown? I mean, that is a potential. There's so many...
That lay down with maidens fair in the Bible, correct? The Nephilim.
And, the offspring they had were horrendous, huge giants, and we read in Scripture, and, you don't have to read into as far as a heavenly pretext or even have a belief system in place. Look at historically, we've got giants on the earth in those days and giants now type deal in Genesis. So, and we've got King David fighting an Anakim, descendant of the giants named Goliath. They're still around after the flood. The flood was supposed to wipe out pretty much all of the DNA manipulation that was going on a long time ago. The real story of Noah, if you told it and presented it properly in a movie, kids would line up around the block to see it, because what was going on in the times of Noah.
Not the Russell Crowe version. Have you seen that one?
No, and I nothing against old Russell Crowe.
It's got rock monsters in and all kinds of weirdness. It's it's a strange movie.
the Book of Enoch sheds a lot of light onto what was going on at that time, pre-flood times. Sheds a lot of light onto it. And historically, whether it's in the canon of Scripture or not, I mean, it is what it is. And the Book of Jasher and the Book of Jubilees tells us about what happened when the Watchers hooked up with human females. You know, very descriptive about what happened. So, you know, essentially in 300 AD, the Council of Laodicea, the Book of Enoch becomes heresy, and it's removed from all Scripture. And to read it, you're going to face getting burned at a stake somewhere. So it becomes heresy. But, you know, you read in Hebrews, you read in the Book of Jude, they're making reference to Enoch. So the proper Israeli person of over 2,000 years ago was reading the Book of Enoch, and it was in the Torah.
Right.
If it was an addendum or whatever, but they were reading it, they were aware of it. The Book of Enoch is so revealing. He's the man behind the scenes who gets to see how everything works. And, you know, at that time, we'd probably just invented the wheel. So that's as far advanced as this guy is, trying to write down these amazing things he's seeing behind the scenes, and God takes him different places. And he's flying around with Gabriel trying to explain. You know, you and I would say, the laser cut through the ice. He says, the beam of fire, blah, blah, you know, he's a primitive man.
Yeah.
He doesn't have reference to the things we have reference
Well,
to.
the Bhagavad Gita has got stuff like that, hasn't it? Like flying castles and shooting like flaming swords and stuff, and like nuclear explosions are kind of talked of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you can jump in your Varana and go.
That's it, Varana, exactly.
Yeah,
the ship.
Those are in writings and very well detailed. And they've got drawings of how to make one. Ancient drawings of how to put one together. Once again, that was for the elite. You and I, you know, probably tethered the thing in place and had whips on us and stuff. You know, it's always the elite. It always is. They've always get the good stuff, and we get the scraps. Works that way. But history has been hidden from us, and a lot of the different things that are tied together. You know, the Book of Enoch. You get a chance, you can find some good copies available online for free. And then just, you know, if you don't want to look into it as Scripture in a godly sense, look into it as a historical sense. Look into the Book of Jasher and the Book of Jubilees. And now, from the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're starting to release some of the things from the Book of Giants. That's really some fascinating stuff. William Michael Mott has some books out that I highly recommend everyone get. But amazing things out of the Book of Giants, because their offspring, they took care of these offspring. Now here's the deal. In the Book of Enoch, Enoch knows the Watchers. He's got a relationship, whatever it is, a relationship is with them and stuff. And word gets to God what they've been up to, what they've been doing down here. And they know they're in trouble. So they send Enoch up with a petition. They're apologizing. They're going to cease and desist all the evil, horrible things they're doing down here. And they'll return doing God's work, something of that nature. Well, Enoch comes back with some really bad news.
Right.
And reads them their sentence. And so they're kind of like, okay, we're screwed. So they set out to destroy the rest of creation, combining their DNA with fish and fowls and asses, donkeys, you know, and totally just to mess up all of creation is what they went on to do. So imagine the bar scene from the first Star Wars movie. That's probably what a bar looked like around the times of Noah. There's some dude with an alligator head and a human body, and you know, you could
Anubis
have a
Horus
centaur walking around. You could have a minotaur. Oh, I'll have a beer, please. You know, imagine that's your bar scene. So I mean, almost all of creation has been corrupted.
Well, that's
intentionally.
In the genome. That's 15,000 years ago, and this kind of like other component enters the human gene stream. Is that right? Is that what the study said also?
That's pretty much as far back as they went. There was some talk of something that went back up to 22,000 years in the genome. I didn't hear much more about that, but I am aware that some of this stuff looks like it got introduced into whatever about 15,000 years ago.
No. Wow. Do you how do you is it only your team, the Sasquatch Genome Project, has been successful in submitting samples, or this has gone on for years? And people have just
took over 5 years. The whole study.
How are you guys so successful where others had failed? How
essentially, I mean, in the eyes of the world, the study failed, right?
No, but the collection of the samples, you guys
bus parked on top of the deep. It is parked there, and it's not going to go anywhere. little by little, these other guys are reading the paper like, this is fascinating. This is definitely pointing to something. We'd like to replicate the study, the process, and if we can replicate it and come up with the same thing, we'll redeem this paper.
Well, how have you been so successful in getting samples versus over the years when people haven't? I mean, everyone on this team, Scott Carpenter, you, David Paulides, I think, submitted some kind of like weird leg bone. Is that correct?
I'm not aware entirely. I know some really good hair samples and so forth came in from David Paulides, and I know Scott Carpenter was one of the best hair gatherers.
Sure.
Because he has double sticky tape traps, puts apples down at the bottom, and they go in and get the apple, lose hair, and they don't even realize it. You know, they just want to get the treat down there. They'll do that maybe once or twice, then you got to smarten up and do something else because they figured out, oh, you're trying to do something. You know, you're trying to get something from me. They're very smart.
How do you think they elude camera traps? Because I think everyone, when thermal imaging came in at an affordable price, and then camera traps became small enough to be available, still there was like people just keep missing these things, and that's where everyone went, oh, this really can't be real then, because if we can't find them on like camera traps and thermal imaging, how do they keep eluding these things? How do they see them?
There's some good thermal captures out there. Once again, it's up to conjecture.
Sure.
We know what it is. The guy taking the thermals knows what it is, but I mean, everything is up to conjecture. So I mean, in my mindset, where we're at now, we just keep doing what we're doing. I'm not in a show me, prove me mindset anymore. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing, if even for our own satisfaction. We're after better photos, we're after better videos, we're after better this, better that. I mean, for our own satisfaction.
Sure.
And number one, the things that we respond to, if you follow us at all at YouTube, or if you follow our articles on phantoms and monsters, typically we're just responding to people who have problems with something. And that's, you know, foremost on our agenda is these people, no one else will help them. We need to go out there and see what we can do.
Sure.
That's where we're at. So my personal stuff, what I've been doing, I'm just collecting more information.
How does it feel personally when one of these things is close to you? Does it feel like the air's stopped, there's no wind or anything, or does it feel, do you get a creepy feeling you're being watched? How does it feel when one of these things comes around?
I've been close enough to feel their breath and body heat on my back, and then spin around and they're busting brush.
Right.
That fast. I've never had a really pleasant, warm, fuzzy feeling around them, like some of you. So, okay, it doesn't mean we should shoot them, hurt them, harass them, anything like that. But I don't like them.
No.
I don't like being close to them.
Would you not think, like people, there's some good ones and bad ones? Because obviously there's a book recently, for also those that don't know, called The Missing 411, written by David Paulides, about like strange disappearances. And before anyone says, oh, it's predation, it's someone falling off a cliff, it goes through like a police report, essentially, eliminating all those things of people just mysteriously disappearing in the woods. But there's like always shoes left behind, or certain parts of clothing, all arranged in a very particular way most of the time. Must have been in some like very dangerous situations in your life. You might end up in one of these books, JC. You need to be careful, man.
Well, if I do, I hope there's a pile of brass laying next to me. That's all I can say. I'm not going out without a fight.
Do you think? Well, I mean, what do you think of that book in particular? Do you think it's Bigfoot related?
What I like about his research is because he was a former law officer, he's got that kind of training, and they're purposely, you know, anybody who was potentially suicidal, people want to go off and disappear in the woods all the time.
Yeah, there's no crime against wanting to just drop out, right?
Yeah. You want to drop out, drop it. You know, they eliminated all these different things before they went and did the case. And he sent me the Missing 411 Western edition, and I could only read like a chapter at a time, and I had to put it up because it was so upsetting. Because a lot of it's children. A good part of it is children, and very bizarre things. I mean, the ones that are found alive usually aren't able to talk about what happened to them because they're too young, or developmentally disabled people who can't talk about what happened to them. In fact, there was a couple of cases out of Tennessee. One of them they found, I don't know about the other one, but it's developmentally disabled people who disappeared. They found the one kid without shoes, walking on a road, so they got him back, and he was smiling, he was happy to be found, but he can't talk about what happened to him.
Sure.
He doesn't have the ways and means to talk about what he did or what happened or where he was.
No.
So, you know, some of those are found, and in some cases these children are found over 1, 2, 3 ridges of mountainous area.
Well, I always mention that to people.
Take you and I a half a week. You know, give me another cigarette. Hold on. Okay. You know, how did they get there?
Yeah, well, it's in the book. There's many cases. I mean, there's like 3-year-old children that disappear, and they're found. The body usually is like 3 or 4 mountain ranges up thousands and thousands of feet on it. It's just and who did it? And sometimes there's scratches that go from like head to foot as if they were going sideways. So yeah, there's some shocking cases in there. But yeah, it just seems so Bigfoot related.
You know? I would say there's quite a bit of the furry people involved in these disappearances. And in another case, imagine this: you've got hundreds of searchers out in an area where these Bigfoot are, and they know why they're there. Hey, George, they're after that guy that broke his neck on the cliff up there.
Yeah.
Tonight, run his body down to one of those trails so they'll find him and leave. Okay? All right, that's what we'll do. So I think a lot of times they'll carry out the unfortunates. Because these, in most cases, it's areas where the searchers have been over 50 times, and then the body shows up there. So I think a lot of times they're just carrying out the unfortunate individual and putting them where they'll be found, so all these hundreds of searchers will go away and leave them alone.
Well, there's a few occasions when the army has arrived and turned up, hasn't it? Green Berets doing sweeps of mountainsides, which is strange.
There's something going on. Another one of the incidents out of one of his books. I'm talking with a new contact now, and I'm up in northern Minnesota right now, and this gentleman has lived up in between 3 Native American reservations in northern Minnesota his whole life.
Yeah.
And he's got some generational things going on with the upright walking canines. We'll get into that later. But one of the stories out of Missing 411 is this young hunter went missing, Corey. They found his ATV, they found his gun, they found his pack. His dog was there and alive, and they searched everywhere. They couldn't find this guy, everywhere. And this new contact of mine, him and his friends, I guess they'd been on some search and rescue before, they showed up about a day or so into the search to go volunteer, and they got sent home. And a couple days later, they sent everybody home without having found this guy.
Whoa.
Which they found weird. And at the time, in this guy's town, the search and rescue there, of course, but he said there was a lot of guys in suits and dark tinted glass vehicles. The feds were there. So, you know, he said something more heinous than a guy going missing was going on. And they knew a lot more than they were telling the public about something. So a year later, Sheriff's Department is flying over early spring before the leaves come out, and from a plane spotted his body, his nude body, 16 feet off the trail.
Wow.
Where searchers had been through 50 times.
So he'd been put back, essentially, I guess, is the intonation there, right? Returned.
Yeah. I mean, returned in nude, so I mean, whoever got a hold of him took his clothes.
Well, you need to be careful out there, JC.
Yeah.
Really careful.
Yeah.
Do you when you go on these research trips, do you travel alone?
Early on, for the most part, I was by myself. A lot of times my Native American elder, Leonard Dan, we call him Chief Dan, respectfully, he's a very adept tracker, and he knows the reservation areas like the back of his hand, and a lot of times I'd be out there with him. But some of these situations, if I don't know what's there, it's better me go by myself. I only have myself to worry about.
No, it's yeah, it's, I don't know, just you gotta just be careful. Oh boy.
You know, if it's a group thing, we have a group plan. You know, this is what we're going to do. This is how we react. Pretty much now, I mean, as far as getting reaction and interaction is build a big bonfire.
Yeah.
Laugh, joke, do some whiskey shots, have fun, relax a little bit. Be armed to the teeth, be ready, be prepared, but
don't act like you're looking.
Yeah, and they'll come in and they'll just start messing with you. They want to party too. You know, there's some kind of a separation between us. Bigfoot wants to come sit down next to you on your couch and watch a chick flick, but he can't. There's a separation there.
Yeah.
So, you know, when the rocks come in, it's almost like a prisoner trying to communicate with you. It's so serene, so bizarre. And sometimes we'll get hit with rocks. So sometimes we do.
Or pine cones.
And pine cones, and you know, a well-directed, well-placed rod to get your attention. You know, I've never had any life-threatening injuries, thank goodness. But
well, I presume
guys get their heads cut open and so forth. But
I presume
it's the interaction. We've got different areas that we're working with, different family units, if you would, or if you will, that we've been tracking and following and measuring their footprints and their different sizes over the years. And in some cases, these youngsters grow about a foot a year.
I was going to say, well, you mentioned these areas you go into. I presume some of these are reservation areas that are like a white man couldn't really go into. How do you have to like make a connection, I guess, with the local tribe?
We buy all the proper permits to hunt, to have firearms, everything. You know, we have all the proper permits.
Oh, I don't mean that. I just mean beyond respect. If you go into a reservation area to look for these things, do you not need permission from the elders of the tribe or something or anything like that? Or?
Most of the times, actually 90% of the time, we're there by invitation of somebody from the tribe or a referral by Navajo Criminal Investigations or something of that nature. It is that kind of referral or direct contact with the family or the people who have the cattle grazing area or whatever it is, the land, home, lease, so forth. That's the invitation there. And then on top of that, we have all the permits we need to. If we're going to be on the land, on the river, wherever we're going to be, we have to buy a permit for it, which that's fine. That helps the tribe. And it helps their game and fish, which they have a really decent game and fish overall, and good forest management.
So this thing you mentioned about 10 minutes ago, these kind of like dog-like creatures, now they've started popping up on Scott Carpenter's research, filming them. Could that not, like, well, essentially it's a man-sized creature with a dog-like head, right? Is that not a misidentified Bigfoot or a bear?
To be bipedal.
Yeah.
To walk on two. That's, you know, I mean, in the end, I mean, I think when a lot of people were seeing them down on all fours, which they spend a good deal of their time down on all fours, you know, you'd rather be in four-wheel drive than two-wheel drive in some cases, and they're down on all fours, but they are huge. You know, you've got something that's 300 or 400 pounds, even down on all fours, you know, and early on we're like, well, these are dire wolf. They've got to be leftover dire wolf. They've got to be this, got to be that, but they're bipedal too much to be just a leftover relic from before the Ice Age. They walk on two legs way too much. Now, when we get into this genre, you've got an upright walking canine. At any given time, there's 20 different possibilities. I'm not going to put it in a little box for everybody and make it convenient. It's a case-by-case basis what people saw.
I always presume Bigfoot, misidentified Bigfoot or bear.
Yeah, you know, and we early on were following up on stories on the reservation where they thought it was this and it turned out to be something else. If anybody wants to go in depth on the shape-shifting dark art practices of some of the Native Americans and especially the Dene Navajo.
Well, it's skinwalking, isn't it? Skinwalkers, that's what they call them. It's like a Native American witch or warlock who can alter their shape.
Native American, essentially Native American. And if you contact me, I know you're a real person, I'll send you the link to our documentary, Navajo Skinwalkers and Legends, and you can watch it free of charge.
Nice, oh cool.
But it's witchery. It's an evil, dark practice that involves homicide, necrophilia, child abuse, and cannibalism. So, you know, I don't think most of my crew at any given time is Native American, and they don't believe those factors have a part of any culture.
Sure. Well, is it not just someone wearing an animal skin to get close to someone in the wilderness, maybe?
I think early on, but here's what happens. Ethan, I'm a practicing elder, and you want to become a skinwalker. So, Ethan, you need to kill someone near and dear to you and bring them to us. Now, if you can't kill them, we will. But you got to be present. That's your initiation. Somebody near and dear. And if one of the elders finds the body pleasing, they might practice a little necrophilia on it in front of you, your loved one, your dearly departed, murdered loved one. From there, you're going to dine with us on some of the softer tissues of the body. From there, you're going to help us make potions and powders and bone shards out of the rest of the body. Nothing is wasted.
And what would this be for? This be to get
your apprenticeship after that.
And at that point, what would you be employed as an assassin, as someone to poison or kill a relative? What would you be as a skinwalker at that point? What would they utilize you for?
And that's the whole thing. You've just put yourself into a big organized crime syndicate, as far as I'm concerned, because you answer to the elders, and you wear the hide of the animal that you want to emulate for a while. And that's a lot of the witnesses and a lot of the stuff that we've been involved in. It's been somebody wearing a bear hide or something like that, you know, running around, harassing, scaring people from there. But 90% of what I've investigated with the Skinwalker has been the upright walking wolf, 7, 8, 9 feet tall. They can see the face move, they can see the teeth, they can see the nose twitch, the muzzle, everything. It's not a mask, it's not a suit. There's some kind of transformation that has taken place.
Right. No, it's
now they turn back into a person. That's what's amazing. And with the weir, as in W-E-I-R, the weir wolf, that's more of a Caucasian witchery to turn into the wolf.
Sure.
So there's a separation, your Native American Skinwalker, and then you've got the Caucasian weir. And that's just two varieties of shapeshifters. There's all kinds of shape-shifting practicing witches out there. The Brujas and everything else can turn into owls and all this other stuff.
Do you think is that what this Scott Carpenter gentleman has been followed by, or he's filmed essentially? You can see his stuff on YouTube, really, but yeah, is that what you think is behind him in these pictures?
We don't know, and here's another thing too. Let's go back to the Dogmen, and we have writings. Marco Polo wrote about the Dogmen. We've got different writings throughout history. There was an isle off of India, 120,000 strong of dog people. They had basically walked on two legs, fairly human bodies. They had hands, fingers with long nails, and dog heads, historically through history. And they were silk weavers, and they lived in caves, and the wealthy ones wore decent clothes. I mean, there's pretty on my my Facebook page, and then we've shared it around. We found a really good article covering this, but these guys were so fierce in battle that the kings of the time would send them tribute, arrows, bows, bucklers, shields, swords, and they would hire them as mercenaries to come and fight for them. They were a very fierce culture.
Damn.
Now they're dispersed now, so the Dogmen are what they are all the time. It isn't somebody you sat next to Sunday morning, Sunday school, at 9 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night they turn into a wolf. Dogmen are what they are all the time. Those who witness it, watch them, seen them, have seen the babies, the teenagers, the males, the females, the adults, their interactions, how they interact with each other.
Any reports of attacks?
Oh yeah.
Or does that put us back into missing 411 territory again?
That goes into the 411 territory, but I've got a dear friend who had a couple of his dear friends on his property out photographing, and just up, and one of the guys was just a few yards back on the trail, and he heard a little twig snap, and he turned around, put the camera down, and just out of the corner of his eye, this wolf man comes out, breaks his buddy's neck, knocks him down. The other guy hides, and he's watching. This is a wolf man with OCD. He peels the clothes off the guy, folds him up, puts him in a little pile, picks the body up, walks away with it. What are you going to tell the police? What are you going to tell the police?
Well, I presume he'd be, they'd think he did it, right?
Something like that happens. That's why we quit guiding guided trips other than researchers down on the reservation sections of the San Juan River, because the furry folks like to come down and party with you, and somebody gets grabbed up and carried away, who's going to jail?
Yeah, you guys.
Hey, what are you going to tell? What are you going to tell the authorities? A big hairy man grabbed this guy up, and now he's captive in a cave somewhere. Yeah, what are you going to do? So it's disclaimers. You sign this, you sign that. We'll take you down.
You need to wear GoPro cameras, I think, unless you've already got them. Maybe
we run with GoPros. We run with all kinds of stuff. We've always had everything everyone suggests. We've always had that. We've always used it, and I've hung GAN cameras from New Mexico to New York State, millions of places. We've never got anything really super cool or definitive. I think there's some kind of electronic signature, and number one, you've got to get there before they're there. And when you're coming up the mountainside, a 2-track road, they're tapping, they're communicating all the way up to wherever their camp is, wherever they are. They know you're there before you get there, and then you got eyes on you the whole time you're there if they're in the area. So getting there before they do in the first place, that's a challenge.
Well, you're referring to wood knocking, which is the presumed means of communication for some of these things.
A lot of you guys out there smacking on trees, you might be saying something about their mama. You better be careful. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know the Bigfoot Morse code. What? Your mother wears combat boots.
I was going to say, what do you...
guys get run off the mountain, and all they did was wood knock.
Yeah.
And they were surrounded and got run off the mountain. They were armed to the teeth, and they chose to run.
Have you ever would not? Have you ever returned a knock?
What's that?
Have you ever returned a knock?
A few years ago I did, and I thought better of it. I thought better of it. Because they're the ones communicating to each other, and they're talking about you in the first place. So you're putting something in the mix, they might get confused. Oh, pinch his head? What? What did you say?
Sure.
Squeeze, break his neck. Oh, what? That's what I heard. Don't mix up their communication. They're talking about you.
So you think these things are actually dangerous then, for the most part? They're not all benign, and there's a couple of bad ones, or?
If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, they'll kill you.
And that's any one of them?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. Damn.
I do think there's different values and cultures among the furry people. If you and I were to be transported to the Old West, 1870s, you and I would probably rather run into some Dene Navajo than run into Apache. Dene Navajo, if we're nice to them, they'll probably make us some fry bread and mutton, okay? The Apache probably just didn't kill you. So it's a different culture, a different value, and I think that is represented with these different clans of these furry people. Different cultures, different values.
What do you think of the recent photos that came out by a guy called Todd Standing, and they were like super close up, super detailed? What do you think of Todd Standing and his research?
I have some questions for him.
Yeah.
I do. And I will ask him those questions given the opportunity in person.
Because he's working with Jeff Meldrum now, who's about as mainstream a Bigfoot researcher as you can get, who's got his own TV shows, he's mainstream, he's at Idaho University. He says they're real, but he's working with Todd Standing, who's like been accused of being a hoaxer with his films or his photographs and stuff and certain things. I mean, I don't know.
It might even be a case where he's under so much pressure to produce something, because in his mind, he wants protection for these creatures so bad that
which they don't really need, though, do they?
Justifies the means.
Yeah.
That's his mindset. He wants protection for them so bad, the end justifies the means. So I don't know what's going on with him. I will say this: the Finding Bigfoot episode that he did, that video.
Cliff Bartman called him out, didn't he? I think.
That video is real.
Right. On top of the ridge.
They debunked it. And I think that video is real. Now his other stuff, there's a lot of it I question, but you know what? I'll talk to him about that.
Well, my feeling is he's genuine. He's had these experiences, but I think the footage is fake as a way of generating interest to get this protection. But I think he's genuine. But I think what he does isn't, if that makes sense. To kind of bring it to the kind of public forum.
He's under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I have some questions about some of the photos he's got. Is this guy is this dude wearing a mask?
Sure.
Or is it a paper mache model? I mean, I don't know. This looks like studio lighting. I'm not a photographer expert. There's been experts who've looked at some of the photos and say this is studio lighting. This was done in a studio, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, they're the experts. Let them hammer on it.
Yeah. No, it's strange.
I don't like people coming out with something fake and making claims of that nature. And if that's the case, I'm very disappointed.
Yeah. Damn. What do you think of the other shows or recent shows? What do you think has been the best kind of Bigfoot related show that kind of gets the point across to a layperson who's somebody who initially thought it was a bunch of hooey and hogwash? What do you think is the best show to kind of get the message across? Do you think I think
short of reading comic books with little blurbs, if you want to understand better, I think probably Finding Bigfoot is a good introductory way to at least look at a little bit of the culture of some of the folks out there.
Yeah, because I'm a fan of Monster Quest.
We worked with them. I loved Monster Quest.
Doug Highcheck's program, right?
I wish they would bring that back.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. Joe and Jane, fluoridated six-pack, have to have central characters to identify with every week. In Monster Quest, the nerds like us, we're watching Monster Quest every week. We don't need a central character to identify with. It's the topic matter we're after. But what they're finding, the shorter attention spans with some of the lower information people, God bless you, they need central characters to identify with every week. And that's the way programming is going to be more geared. So we can't have a purely intellectual television show anymore unless you find it on public television. It's unfortunate.
No, of course. Well, they're all. It's not just. I don't know. What is now? There's Monsters of America. Is that right? Is that a recent one? Have you been in any of these things?
I was talking with one of the producers of Monsters and Mysteries in America, and no, not Monsters. It was Mountain Monsters. I'm sorry. We've been in Monsters and Mysteries in America. We've been on that program. That's a good program. Here, 2 thumbs up. Lawn Monsters, I was talking to one of the producers, and I go, you know, the Ohio Grassman episode you guys did, amazing. You got footprints, you got a photo. The Grassman was in the back room, and you found his little nest he made, and then he was shaking the house and banging on it. So you guys found more stuff in one episode than 5 seasons of finding Bigfoot. Did all that really happen in one episode? And he said, well, we take certain liberties. I said, don't tell me anything else.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched the program since. Those guys were put together by a casting company. Those guys had probably never, ever met each other outside of the time they came together after the casting company. We got the guy that makes the traps. We got the ex-Marine. We got the newbie. We got the trapper. This is a casting company putting people together and then throwing them into a show. Nobody knew who these guys were.
Well, that's the danger with any reality show, isn't it, really?
They didn't have any background in any kind of cryptozoological anything. They just... And I'm sure they're all nice guys, but these are actors.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. This is entertainment. These are actors. They might dig up an actual witness. They might dig up an actual photo, but it's scripted crypto fiction. So you've got to be careful how you look at some of these programs. At least with the Finding Bigfoot, for the most part, you see it as they see it as it happens.
Yeah.
That's the plus on it. We worked with them year before last on their two-part season finale in the Four Corners, where they went out into 4 different states out of the crypto 4 corners, and they did a really nice job with our Navajo elder, Chief Dan, and he worked with Renee, and he stumped her.
Oh, really?
I can't see what else it could be.
Well, she's the skeptic, isn't she?
She's the skeptic. Well, she was going to kidnap Chief Dan. She goes, F you guys, he's going back to Portland with me. But anyway, they got along great. They did a good job with him.
Damn.
Did a good job. But I stayed out of it, pretty much for political reasons. Number one, I won't be lorded over in a town hall meeting. That's so degrading. It really, it's degrading. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy. Oh, there's that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. We're the ones doing the town hall meetings. We're the ones doing the meetings. Things like I don't want to get into that kind of, that becomes scripted crypto fiction to me. So I don't want to get involved in that.
Why is this such
political reasons? Because Matt Moneymaker bashed the genome study because he didn't have a dog.
Well, I was about to mention that, yeah.
Wally Hersom, his financier, who funded him his $70,000 a year salary for many years, called him in on what they had. You got anything? And he goes, nope. He says, well, I'm leaving. I'm going to go over to the genome study. They need some financial help testing. So it's a good thing. God bless you, Matt. I'm glad you got a show. And that's kind of was the sore spot with Matt, was he lost the guy that was doing the funding for BFRO, essentially.
I think that's the sad aspect of the Bigfoot research community, a bit like the UFO community. There's so much infighting and double dealing, and this person's has an issue with this person. I don't know why you order how it's. I mean, it's just people, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day, but it's how you're all trying to achieve the same goal, but you fight a lot.
There's a lot of jealousy and stuff out there. That's why. I've taken all the advertising off the YouTube. There's no money on the table. I have nothing for sale. I have nothing to sell you. And
you mean the listeners can't get a mug?
What's that?
The listeners can't get a mug?
Well, the more cryptid than Loch Ness Monster, more cryptid than the Sasquatch, more cryptid than the Chupacabra, is this cryptid check writer. Where is that son of a bitch? I'm looking for him. Because that's the most elusive thing out there. Anything that I've looked into is this cryptid check writer. When people say, you're just doing this for the money. There is no money. Nobody's writing checks for this, guys. Everything we do is out of pocket. And we don't take money from people we go and help. We don't charge anything.
Well, I think people forget that the grassroots research on this particular field, Bigfoot, not just all crypto creatures, but mainly Bigfoot, is... it's not financed really by anyone. It's grassroots people like yourself who are bringing in these samples and hopefully trying to get this thing to come out to the. But like you said, Scientifica.
If anything, in the end, we're making a good case for what we're doing. In the other aspects of the other high strange weirdness, we're just making a good case for what we're doing. People are opening their eyes, being a little bit more aware of their situations, and sharing this information. We get the feedback from other people who've had similar experiences. That's why we share. That's why we go on Phantoms and Monsters and do a big article, and we get millions of hits, and we get out there with the videos, and then we get the reciprocation of people coming back. Oh, this happened to me, and that track looks like, here, I'll show you a picture. Yeah, my track's identical to that, and we get together collectively and we share this information.
So what's the next step for you in the Genome Project? You said New Mexico was the next stage to get this up and running again, correct?
Yes, I'd like to do the next study through University of New Mexico. That's where we're gearing toward, and we've got pretty well the okay to go ahead. I want to get a really good, solid evidence handling and chain of custody set up prior to this, and in transit, and when it arrives. So this is all being put together and designed, so we won't have the naysayers. Oh, it's cross-contamination. It's this, it's that. I want a really good chain of custody, and after it gets to its destination, I want a good chain of custody there too. So
is it the same group of guys? Is it you, Paulides, Scott Carpenter?
Anybody who wants to donate will be, their name will be attached to whatever they send in.
Have you got a donation website I can link the viewers and listeners up to on the...
Once I get everything set up, I'll get an address out where people can send samples. If we need special handling, if you have questions about what you're sending in, contact me. You can get me on Facebook. You can find me on Google. You can find me on YouTube. You can contact me. And we'll have probably an email if you've got questions, or a phone number to call. Now, word wise out there, unless your Sasquatch had a really bad case of hemorrhoids and there's blood in the stool, keep your poopy. No more poop, please. No more poop. It's like a fetish out there. Look at this bag of shit. It's Sasquatch. Keep your shit. I really, really don't want your shit. Unless you had a really bad case of hemorrhoids. Then I'll take it. Yeah.
Damn.
Anyway, I don't want any poop. Now, there was one lady, she made a really good cause that this particular seed from this particular melon that this individual ate would probably have come in contact with some of his intestines, and it was really coarse. And I will go to the science people on that.
Sure.
That might be the only poop we take in. So.
Cool. What's happened to the original team then? Melba obviously has been disgraced and can't testify in court anymore. How does she cope with financially?
She's still testing. She's working with Brian Forrester, and they're testing the elongated Paracas skulls presently.
Right.
And some other strange anomalies that they've dug up. I mean, and we get into the skull thing. That's where people froth and spit on you and get into the arguments. And when we have two plates on the back of our skull, a lot of these elongated skulls, the pure volume is amazing. The volume, once again, it's not skull binding, which tends to crush the skull.
I was going to say, yeah, some tribes bind the skull so it elongates, don't they?
But a lot of these skulls have one plate across the back, so right away, this is not fully human, whatever it is we're dealing with. So that needs DNA testing. It really does. And, some of your early rulers in Egypt and so forth, I mean, the paintings of them, they've got elongated skulls, and the carvings, they've got elongated skulls and weird, goofy-looking bodies and stuff. And that goes on for a long time until Ramses. He's the first human-looking pharaoh that we have from antiquity. Everything else was elongated skulls and weird-looking dudes. And, we go back in antiquity to the time when the sons of the fallen, the Nephilim, the freakish offspring who reproduced, and they had kids, and they have special privileges, and we're their slaves, essentially. We're the slave labor, we're their pleasure, sometimes we're their food, whatever it was anything goes with the giants and their offspring at one time. And the strange Quetzalcoatl, he's an 8-foot tall lizard, and he's worshipped by the Aztecs, in their drawings and writings. It's not a fabrication. That's what the dude was.
Well, wasn't he a white settler with very gingery red hair? Is that correct? But he was 7 or 8 feet tall, they said. Is that correct? Quetzalcoatl?
He was a lizard man.
Yeah.
And he's also depicted as the flying serpent and so forth. I mean, there's legendary things often have extraordinary resemblances to what they actually were. So the great men of renown, when you go back to the offspring of the unholy union of angelic principalities and humankind, when they talk about the great men of renown, we probably had a Zeus, we probably had an Apollo. They lived for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they had special abilities that we don't have.
And then there was some cataclysmic event that rewrote history, and now we have to begin again, I guess, right?
the flood was to break up the organized syndicate that they had, because they had the total known world was under their control.
Do you not think
it's under their control again? Only they aren't these one-eyed cyclops bastards running around. They wear suits and they hide in plain sight.
The elite.
They're in control again.
The elite.
Yeah, I think it's time for another flood, I guess. That might help.
Well, not before we've got this DNA study up and running, I hope. Do you have to go and collect samples now then? Is that what's happening now, the sample collection by various people?
No, I'm basically, once we put out that we are accepting samples, because people have been contacting me over the last few years. I'm like, here's how you handle it. If you got this, you got that. And if you want to go pay for the genome testing, it's probably $600-800. I mean, the mitochondrial is about $600. All you're going to get is the mitochondrial, the mother.
Is that cheaper than it was back in the Melba Ketchum kind of days? Yeah.
Now we can actually get a whole genome done overseas for about $1,800. And when the testing was just a few years ago, I think it was like $6, $7, $8 a pop.
Sure. Wow.
And sometimes you'd have to do it again. Oh no. Oh no. But now, they've got some real reliable stuff going on overseas for about $1,800. So I think that'll be the end destination. I just want a really good chain of custody from point A to point B.
Yeah, you don't want some stupid scientist touching it with his hands and then getting a bloody human result and messing up the samples.
Well, it still would show up as him being the second party. You can still test the DNA.
Sure.
Remove the second party.
Okay. When would the plan be to kind of get that up and running? In the next year or two, or is it going to take longer than that to get enough samples?
I think I'll get rolling on it as soon as I've got all the protocol in place for the chain of custody. By the way, this is an e-cig.
Oh, I know, I can see. We've got lots of them in England.
I've been on it about 4 years now. I gave up 99% tobacco. I like to have a cig every now and then, but this is a much healthier alternative.
Well, I suppose climbing those mountains, it feels better now, right?
I've got a lot more lung capacity back. I can keep up with Chief Dan. He's 75, and he's always 100 yards ahead of me. Wait. But yeah, I'm keeping up a little bit better.
He doesn't smoke the peyote and the peace pipe then. Chief Dan.
He smokes a little bit of mountain tobacco, but that's natural grown tobacco.
So not that bad for you. Well, within reason.
There's no cancer. I mean, there was no cancer in China until the white man cigarettes showed up back in the 1950s.
Sure.
Cancer was virtually unheard of. Everything we're in is toxic. Our food's toxic. The water's toxic. Everything is just toxicity. So, I mean...
Yeah, fluoride in the water, aspartame in the soft drinks.
Yeah.
Spikes in cancer, like you said, since the 1950s. Yeah, for sure.
And then we've got a $13.9 billion a year cancer industry. So, quit campaigning for a cure, because that's not going to come forward, not with all the money that's involved. Go after the cause, guys.
Well, I actually might be having a cancer research scientist on soon, and I actually mentioned recently that obviously the medical marijuana and the THC oil that they draw, obviously from hemp and marijuana, which is apparently reverses not all cancers but most.
No, and all this stuff's been repressed, natural things like that. I mean, Big Pharma wants to treat you, and they want you to be a customer of theirs from cradle to the grave.
It's all about the comebacks, not the cure.
Yeah, it isn't about the cure. They're not about putting cures out. There's no money in that. So that's another topic. But be careful. And we've got geoengineering. That is a fact. That is a fact. I don't know if you guys across the pond are getting hit as hard as we are over here, but it's going on. And I'm involved with a lot of people who are scientists and in aviation and some very intelligent places that are talking to these pilots. They're testing some of these chemtrails, and it's aluminum, it's barium, and sometimes there's some really weird stuff mixed in with the collection points, so it's not good for you. Barium is hell on your aluminum, on your immune system. Aluminum collection in your medulla oblongata, and it's early Alzheimer's for all of us. What did I just say? Oh, it's not good.
And the fluoride clogs your pineal gland.
Well, the fluoride's bad for your bones, your joints, and your tissues, and it calcifies your pineal gland.
That's it, the seat of the soul, the third eye. Yeah.
Isn't it strange the eye of Horus looks identical to the pineal gland?
Yep.
And isn't it strange they've introduced all this fluoride to us, and it calcifies our third eye.
It's the elites trying to shut you all down.
Well, we're in the middle of the great culling.
Stop you asking questions.
Have
you seen that thing called the Georgia Guidestones?
Yeah, in plain sight, they're telling what they're going to do to us.
Get the population down, yeah.
Well, no, that's in case of a natural disaster. We'll be able to go to these guidestones and be guided to what do we do next? Because we're the survivors. No. They're going to reduce the population of the Earth to a manageable 550 million useful idiots to serve them. I mean, the Dark One says, kill everybody. Well, leave 550 million useful idiots to serve us, and we'll have heaven on earth. We'll have one hell of a party. And you're going to live forever. I promise. Well, the other guy died, and a bunch of my... Oh, no, I'll bring them back to life. Don't worry, but follow through. Follow the agenda. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what they're doing.
There we go. J.C. Johnson, you beautiful man. Where can people find you if they want to find you? If they want to support the research, if they want to contribute something monetarily, if they want to get a mug, if they want to send you some sighting reports, if they want to send some Bigfoot DNA samples.
Keep your money, send your prayers. You can find me on YouTube, JC Johnson channel, or Crypto Four Corners. And we've got a Facebook page, Crypto Four Corners. You can go there and like it. I think I'm running out of room to add people. I think I'm about to the point where Facebook's going to cut me off on adding people as friends, but you can always go like our Facebook page, Crypto Four Corners, and I try to keep.
Well, you can still post on that, can't you? So it'll be fine.
Yeah. And I try to keep the latest information up on the Crypto Four Corners page, the latest investigation, as of which we've got a pretty good article and video out about the Lakewood lichen, the upright walking dog thing that one of the locals saw while I was there in Lakewood, just outside of Denver. He did some really excellent sketches. And what's interesting about Denver is Jack took me out to almost, even the heart of Denver has green belts that go out to the foothills, that go up to the mountains. It's a straight shot in several spots. Denver, straight shot in for anything that wants to come in on.
Oh. Hello? Oh. Sorry, I lost you for a second there, Jason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking about the green belts.
I know, I caught that. Just the last thing, the last word you went. You froze, but I caught you.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. We've still got it.
The green belts go through all the city of Denver, in the suburbs and everything, and they back up to the foothills. And the foothills back up to the mountains, the big 14 and 12,000 foot tall mountains. I mean, it's a straight shot in and out for anything that wants to come in from the country, if you will, to get into suburbia.
Do you have a video anywhere where you can people can find out how to successfully and without contamination collect potential DNA sources to send to you or to the lab? Is there a way of doing it?
I don't think we have essentially a video, but when you see us handling a lot of these samples, number one, nitrile gloves would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to sneeze or cough. If you're afraid you're going to sneeze or cough or blow a loogie on something,
run away.
Put a mask on, so you can look really funny. Put on a mask with these nitrile gloves, or you can just wear the nitrile gloves and know that if you sneeze or cough, you probably have something we need to wash off, or you're going to contaminate as the second party. It's not totally ruined, but yeah, nitrile gloves.
Right.
Paper is good for hair, like an envelope is good for hair. I don't mind doing the baggy thing, and people get on me, oh, the petroleum leaches off. Yeah, it takes about 3 or 4 years in the freezer for the petroleum from the baggy to start bleaching off.
Don't lick the envelope to seal it?
Yeah, don't lick the envelope either. Just put it in there, so forth. And hairs hold up for a long time if they're kept dry.
Sure. Okay, cool. Awesome.
It's mostly hair that we get in. If you're doing special saliva collecting, then you've already studied how to collect those salivas. If you're working on getting more blood samples, you already know how to obtain those blood samples. You know how to handle them. Now, if you just by willy-nilly have some blood that you can't explain, then once again, go back to the nitrile gloves, sterile handling procedures. Put it in paper if you can. If you want to use a baggie or a large baggie, a quart baggie or something, that's fine, because once you seal that, you're keeping the air in and the outside air out, it's fine.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. Well, food for thought, everyone. Thank you for listening to Ethan McKinley's Questionable. Our guest today has been the amazing J.C. Johnson, crypto hunter, Indiana Jones. This is the first of many episodes with him, I hope. We can discuss all manner of crazy creatures and cryptozoological expeditions.
I'm looking forward to getting you out here.
Oh, I'll come out there. We'll go looking for Bigfoot. I'm there.
No, we're going to go after relic reptiles.
Oh, okay. Like the Komodo dragon type thing.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, let me know.
T-Rexes. We need to do some harvesting.
Okay, I'm in.
Harvesting. That'll be fun. We've got a Navasaurus, which is actually a giant, featherless, turkey-looking thing that runs in packs that have been seen regularly on the reservation that no one can kill or capture.
Do I not need a hunting license to as an outsider? Okay.
I'll get you one.
Awesome, JC Johnson. We're in. We're going to go hunting for crypto creatures. Okay, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you aren't watching, it's because the feed hasn't worked, and this is just an audio podcast. Hopefully, it's not. You can find me at ethanmckinley.com along with other episodes. You can find JC Johnson at Crypto Four Corners on Facebook. Where else can they get you, JC?
JC Johnson at YouTube.
There you go, JC Johnson at YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel below. And if you want to donate maybe a dollar, you can donate $1 in the top corner of the YouTube channel on my channel. Just click that button, send me $1. Keeps the show going.
I'm going to send you $1.
Thank you.
I'm in.
Okay, and I'll come and hunt T-Rex with you. For sure. Dude, I'm there. I'd love to come out and see you. JC, thank you. I love you. Thanks for doing this. God bless you.
God bless everyone out there. And be careful. Look up, look down, look around.
Okay. Speak soon. Bye.
Peace.
Peace, brother.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. But whatever it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Dia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what... It's a big... real big person. That's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see whether, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big. He